Welcome to another timeless education meeting. And in this meeting, we're going to do an experiment where we will be watching a video, this is an evaluation of U.G. Krishnamurti that was requested by one of my subscribers. And I figured we would do it in this meeting. And I asked him if there was anything in particular I wanted to base the evaluation on, and he suggested this video. So we're going to watch it, but the sound is not all that good. So I have a second video which we might watch if this one turns out to be too difficult to get through, or perhaps we will watch both if we have enough time. But anyway, so I will start by, and this time I will do it correctly. Okay, can you see the screen?
Not yet. Now I can.
Yeah, okay. Well, I will just start, and then you tell me to pause it, and I will pause it. Unfortunately, it seems that there is some delay before when I put my arrow over the video, the option to pause doesn't come up right away. So there will be a slight delay, which might end up being like right in the middle of him talking, but we'll just have to do it the way we can. Okay, I will begin now.
And before I say anything, I would like to say something very clearly.
That
when we are saying something, what actually goes on here is like a tape recorder. It is just recording everything that you are saying. Mm-hmm. There is nobody there who is translating. That is how the physical body functions. There is a talker there who is talking, and you think there is a listener there who is listening all the time. But here, there is no talker and there is no listener here.
Are you Andreas, can you pause it?
No, I'll come to that, you see. Mm-hmm.
So I think now he's confirming right there that there actually is no self. There is no one doing this or doing that or doing anything.
Yeah, there is no listener. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the word he used, but yeah, I got.
He said listener and I think talker or speaker.
Yeah, or there's no listener, no speaker. Yeah, so there is no two bodies. There is only one, I guess.
There's like, I think what he's referring to is there's no two separate selves or anything like that.
Two separate bodies, yeah. Two separate objects, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Shall I continue?
Basic question for decades and decades was this. Is there a mind there? Is there a center there? Is there a self there? Is there anything called I there? And I searched for that, studied, and lived with the spiritual teachers, but nobody helped me. I did everything possible to find out an answer for this basic question, is there anything there at all? Is there a mind?
Okay, so it sounds like he's talking about his journey, so to speak, that he wanted to find out if there was something in him, if there was something there, which sounds a bit strange, but I guess he was, I mean, what I read on Wikipedia is that he was searching for enlightenment, and that is kind of that type of motivation is very typical of like fiducian types. So I think that regarding what kind of like energy type he is, he correlates with fiducian. It is always a bit interesting to me how some fiducians would say that, you know, when they were growing up, or yeah, they had this like desire to become enlightened, and I always wonder a bit where that comes from, or like, I mean, that is very, it tells me that they are likely to be fiducian, but I always wonder why that particular motivation, so to speak. But I will continue to, I just wanted to mention that.
I studied psychology, and I got no answers from the psychologists either. I rejected psychology, I rejected religious thinking, I rejected everything, but yet I found no answer for this question.
Can you pause there?
Can I ask you to repeat the question that you were looking?
He was saying that he rejected everything as he studied various things, including psychology.
Yeah.
That was also a religious tradition too, or like religious stuff, or thinking.
No, carry on.
I guess he's rejecting dogma, I guess, because he's referring to various, you could say.
Did you want to say something in particular, Bulelo?
Yes, I'm saying we may also add that on the levels of consciousness, we can then say that he went beyond consciousness level 4, which is skeptic consciousness, because he rejected books and religion and so on.
Yeah.
For the benefit
Yeah.
of I wanted to know.
Yeah, that does sound level 4, like skeptic consciousness.
Shall I continue?
Yep.
To find an answer for.
Is there a mind? Mm-hmm. Is there a self there? Is there a psyche? Is there a center? Is there anything there at all? And nobody helped me to find an answer for that question.
So have you found an answer?
I don't think I found an answer for that question.
I find this a bit odd because, I mean, he says that he was searching to see if there was something there. But I mean, enlightenment is like understanding that there is nothing at the absolute center. So it almost sounds like reversed, like the opposite. Because, I mean, clearly there is something there. I mean, there are thoughts and feelings and things like that. But beyond that, as you get closer to enlightenment or self-realization of what you are, as you scale away all of that stuff, you reach the conclusion that there is nothing there. So it almost sounds like he starts from a position where he already feels like there is nothing there, and he's trying to find out if there is something there. I don't know. It just sounds a bit odd. I'll continue.
At all. For years and years, I wanted to be an enlightened man because that was the environment in which I was brought up. And yet I found that the cravings to that enlightenment or whatever they called it didn't give any satisfactory answers to me. And then, because of the demand to be an enlightened man, what I found myself there in, I am not an enlightened person.
You say you're not enlightened.
No, you see, the question of enlightenment does not arise anymore because I know for certain that there is no such thing as enlightenment at all. This was the thing that really hit me so hard when, as you mentioned on my 49th birthday, I sat under a tree and said to myself, what you have wanted all your life, you are already there in that state, you are an enlightened man. And then naturally a question arose, demanding an answer, how the hell do you know that you are an enlightened man? Until yesterday you were telling yourself that you want to be an enlightened man. And now you think that you are an enlightened man. And you are no different from all those enlightened people. So the question that popped up there inside of me, how the hell do you know that you are an enlightened man? So the same knowledge that I had before, which told me, now you are not an enlightened man, and this is the way an enlightened man functions in this world.
So, I mean, that should have been his question from the beginning. I feel like, what is enlightenment?
Yeah, and then
yeah, to me, he sounds also kind of confusing because he says he discovered that there is no enlightenment, and then in the same vein, then he discovered that he's already an enlightened man. I think Krishnamurti also is not very good in explaining himself. Now we have to sort of guess what is it exactly that he wanted to say. Did he maybe want to say he had some idea of what an enlightened man would be and then discovered that his idea was actually non-existent? Yeah, so I find him contradicting himself there.
Yeah, I'll continue.
And today you tell yourself that you are an enlightened man. The question whirled there inside of me, and suddenly the question stopped there. So the interest whether to find out I'm an enlightened man or enlightened man disappeared totally. And what was left after that is something which I really don't know. People ask me the question, you are not an enlightened man, you are not a guru, you are not a transferred man, you are not this, that, and the other. Who the hell are you? My answer to that question is, I wish I knew. Because there is no way I can tell myself this is me. So that is true of you also there. Because you want to be something other than what you are. The oughtness, the shouldness, the mustness is all that creates what you call you there. Quite the opposite of what you would like to be, what you should be, what you ought to be, and what you must be.
But I mean, on whose standards do you say that?
What's
By
that?
whose standards do you say that I want to be something that I'm not?
Because what you see there is quite the opposite of what you would like to be.
But isn't a lot of life about perception of things?
You see, I don't want to use these philosophical terms, perception, pure perception. There is no perception there without a perceiver. The perceiver is you, created by your culture, society, or whatever you want to call, which is born out of the knowledge you have of yourself and what you should be like and what you must be. I don't know if it makes any sense to you.
It's a little difficult to follow, actually. Would you tell us something about your, your basic teachings? And when people come to you and they want to know answers and things, what do you tell them?
I tell them, get lost and stay lost.
So why do they follow you then?
You should ask them, why do they come? They keep coming day after day, month after month, year after year.
It's because they just enjoy the fact that you destroy every single normal concept that people have.
They still think that I'm saying the same things in a different way. I belong to different times, but basically I'm saying what the great teachers who said before. And there were two pontiffs visited me once in India. Pontiffs, real pontiffs. The Indian pontiffs, not the Christian pontiffs. Somebody said Yuji is a universal God. The other fellow said he's a useless guy. Because we get nothing from him. What he's saying cannot be translated into any framework that we have known so far. But yet we have this problem. The problem is that we cannot brush him aside and say that what he's saying is absolutely nonsense. But even those who psychiatrists who come to see me, the psychologists, the scientists who come to see me out of their curiosity, they assure me that what you are saying seems to be very true, but we want to believe that you are wrong.
So what are you saying then?
What I am saying is what you are saying. I am not saying anything. Let us not turn this into a mystifying thing. This computer, I would like to stick to this analogy or simile of a computer here. This is just a computer. And whatever is there is what is put in by the culture.
You're talking about a human being.
A human being that applies to you and to me here.
It sounds like he is very aware of this idea of cultural hypnotization, that people are what the culture puts into them. But he has still not said much about the idea that we also perhaps have an individual nature. Anyone else want to say comment?
Yeah, I've heard him say similar things.
Okay, I want to talk about the issue of labels. He says people call me this, people call me that, and people call me that. I wish he could say people call me this, but that's just what they project on me. He seems to be trying very hard to push this away. Maybe he could explain and say people call me this, But that's actually what they think. I think he's very much worried also about repelling these kind of labels that people put on him, which is what people use.
So when you are asking the
I've heard him
questions,
also
the
say,
answers that are coming out of
What did you say?
I've heard him in another video say that culture is the only medium through which you can express anything at all, or something similar to that, which seems to also strengthen the notion that he is not really talking about like natures and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
yeah, he also talks about culture being, or the cultural pushing and stuff like that being one of the greatest human conflict or human problem in history or something, is this cultural hypnosis and continual pushing of how people should be in beliefs and stuff, what people should believe in. Not necessarily natures being a conflict.
When it comes to language, then culture does have a very powerful influence, because it's like one's nature does not really come with words or a specific language. So I mean, it's not far off, but yeah. Okay, I will resume the video.
Not my answers. I give you the example of a computer, the word tank which I have. You put in 20, 30, 40, 50 names there and the telephone numbers at random. And you want to find out a particular name and a particular telephone number. You press the button, they come in the alphabetical order. So you press the button again and ask a question, it says. So actually it is not searching anything. Your thinking also is exactly the same process that is going on there, because there is nobody who is thinking. But you think that there is a thinker just the way it is searching.
You're saying that the answers that we come out with are part of our social conditioning and our upbringing, but it's not really your own thought that's coming out.
Nothing. There is no thought which I can call my own. There is no experience which I can call my own. There is no feeling which I can call my own. But we are interested in separating the feelings and putting them on a higher level than just the intellectual thoughts. But there is no way you can experience a feeling unless you give a name to it and call it you are happy, you are unhappy, you are bored, you are not bored.
What are your views on happiness, Eugene? You think that we can be happy, human beings can be happy in this world?
It is just impossible to be happy always. Let me tell you one thing. I have been everywhere in the world. I have seen people, and one thing that people are really interested in anywhere, everywhere, whether they are Americans or Russians or Chinese or Indians, the one thing that they are interested in is how to be happy always without one moment of unhappiness. How to have pleasure without pain at all. It is just impossible because this living organism does not know what happiness is like. It is not interested in keeping that sensation of happiness longer than the natural duration of its life.
Yeah, so he's basically saying that people are fixated on this idea of seeking happiness and pleasure and avoiding pain and unhappiness. So it sounds like he is aware of this idea that, you cannot get away from the fact that life is various experiences and that there is you have to experience the good with the bad.
Well, he was also explaining how happiness, I think, can't be permanent either, and that people are trying to seek some kind of permanent happiness where they'll never feel pain again in something and stuff like that, which
Shall I resume?
Yeah.
So it is a very painful thing. It is throwing out. And so that is why you are unhappy. That is why you are painful.
I do agree with you there. I think we do know very well what happiness is. I mean, happiness is something that makes you have good feelings.
But it is all right. You can have good feelings. You can feel happy. But the demand to keep that lasting forever is really the problem. That is not what is impossible.
It is impossible, but we still aspire to it because
Yeah.
it
I
makes us
think
feel good.
GM wants to say something.
Yeah, so I think that what he's trying to basically say is that people are trying to find some form of like permanent ecstasy or permanent state where of bliss, and that's not what actual enlightenment or is supposed to be. As in, it's not a permanent state of enjoyment and joy or just pleasure, that that accepting that there will be suffering and pain is part of actually achieving a higher level of consciousness, even if it's not actual enlightenment. Yeah.
Feel good, it is a feeling good, that's all that is there. And you are left with the hope that one day, through some miracle or through the help of somebody, you will be able to stay happy forever and ever.
You actually grew up in a very religious sort of family background. You come from a Brahmin family.
Yes.
So do you believe in religion today?
No, religion is responsible for the man's tragedy. It is not that I am anti-religious or any such thing, but religion has not helped us to be what we are. The problem with religion is that it has created a model and placed before us that that's the way we should all be. And that model, unfortunately, happens to be the model of all the great spiritual teachers from time immemorial. What we are doing all the time is to fit ourselves into that model and become that model.
I think this reminds me of when he's talking about the religions. It reminds me of something I read on the Timeless Education blog about actual religions only having a very short lifespan or something.
Yeah.
And that the religions that we know have failed and they are like dead.
But he doesn't really bring up that point. He simply talks about religion. Yeah, he does say that they have failed to let us be natural or something like that. He seems to be talking about.
He mentions how they're the cause of man's tragedy, like how they are I think he means that they're one of the main sources of our problems, not actually helping, but making things worse.
But also that he's not being anti-religious, I think is interesting, because then it means that he's still open to there being some religion that is not that harmful.
Okay, I missed that if he said something like that.
I think also his comments on religion would talk to conscious level 3 consciousness, in that he's looked into religion and he's found some dissatisfaction and tried to look for other ways to explain how the world works. So at least we can say he's been through level 3.
Yeah.
And it is that is responsible for the man's tragedy. We may have, and as some people have succeeded in freeing themselves from the religious stranglehold, but yet we are caught up in the same ethical codes of conduct, the legal structure we are operating in is no different from the religious conditioning of the human being.
Yes, but if you don't have those kind of parameters in society, then what you're talking about is just total anarchy, everybody doing what they want.
There is, in spite of all that anarchy today here, in spite of all the attempts that we are making to keep that a going thing, we have not succeeded. Tomorrow we are going to succeed, and we live in that hope and die in that hope.
Well, yes, I'm not saying that we have achieved the ideal, but surely there has to be an ideal that you work towards, because otherwise man is a very selfish person. Everyone would just live for themselves. And we would just be living in a glorified jungle.
No, this is already a jungle. What is there for us to be proud of? You think this is not a jungle?
Well, you've obviously sort of disassociated yourself.
I have not dissociated myself.
The world.
No, not at all. Not at all. I am not in conflict with this world, because the world cannot be any way different. The dream of creating a paradise on this planet or a heaven on this planet is the one that is responsible for creating hell on this planet.
So how would you like to see society?
I do not want the society to be any different because I am not in conflict with that society. So you seem to be in conflict with the society because you are in conflict with yourself. Why there is that conflict in you is because the idea that you should fit yourself into that value system created by that society. And so you are fighting all the time, struggling, and using tremendous energy to fit yourself into that framework. You have so far not succeeded, and so as I always say, you live in hope and die in hope.
So do I understand then that you're telling me I should...
So I think when he was mentioning too how the seeking for some permanent paradise is what's he keeps mentioning this thing about how seeking this permanent stuff is what's causing all this misery and stuff like that. And I think that may relate to change and stuff like that. That you can't make anything permanent, and trying to make anything permanent is what's causing all these problems and chaos and stuff. Is trying to get some type of permanent state in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about what he said, that he was not in conflict with society, but he said that she was in conflict with society by Giancarlo's. Yeah, he was saying that he was in conflict with she was in conflict with society because
her value system, I guess, or
yes,
she was put into by her culture.
So it's like those who try to fit into society are like in conflict with it.
Well, then I wonder if he's saying that if society is actually in conflict with the way life is or something, like it's trying to change it or control it, or I don't really know. I could be putting assumptions in there, but like I think it's sort of like that's why he's I don't know, maybe he's not in conflict with life because, or with, he said he's not in conflict with society, but that
seems to support some idea of there being a nature, even though he's not talking about different natures. But if there is something outside of society, like when you try to fit into society and fail, then it seems to be some tension between the societal structure that you try to fit into and the nature that is trying to fit in.
Yeah, I'll resume.
Be doing and living exactly the way I like without worrying about what society dictates to me.
Not for a moment. I am not saying that at all. There is nothing more than what you are doing. There is nothing else you can do. I don't know if it makes any sense. Obviously not.
It's a little difficult to understand, I must admit.
Yeah.
But you have such controversial ideas, yet people keep coming to you to ask you, your views on things. How does it feel? Does it give you a kind of power?
No. It doesn't give me any power, you see. I only want to tell them that no useful purpose will be served by carrying on any conversation with me. And yet they come day after day, and they hang around me, hoping one day to understand. I am telling them all the time, there is nothing to understand here.
So then why do you, for example, accept coming on a television program like this? I mean, what is your objective in doing a program like this if you say you've got nothing to say?
No, there is a motive here. And there is no such thing as a motiveless action at all. Since you invited me, I accepted this invitation to appear on your face-to-face and use you as a medium to express whatever I want to express. And what I have found for myself and by myself is something extraordinary. And that has freed from the totality of everything everybody thought, felt, and experienced before me. As I said a while ago, this has never been the part of my experiencing structure. The experiencing structure cannot play any role in my actions or in my expression of what I'm trying to put across. So if somebody out there, any one of your listeners who is going through the same problem, finding no answers for his questions, still hoping and dreaming one day through the help of somebody, he will be able to find answers, or that particular teacher he has tremendous faith in, invested his faith in that teacher will help him to solve his problems. He would stop in the tracks. And then there is something to what this man is saying. If it hits him, probably he will find out the answer for himself and by himself.
But if we all stopped thinking and stopped asking questions, I mean, where would there be progress in this world?
You are not asking any questions. You don't want any answers for your questions, because all the questions you are asking are born out of the answers already you have. You are not satisfied with the answers. Otherwise, why should you ask questions? For example, the question of God. For centuries, man has believed in God. But why do they still ask questions about God? They are not sure that there is God. But yet they are made to believe that there is God, and they have accepted that there is a God, and go to the temples, churches, mosques, whatever their particular religion is, and pray.
Do you believe there is an afterlife?
See, what I say about reincarnation cannot interest anybody. My position is that I always repeat this, that if you think there is reincarnation, if you believe, it is a belief. So if you do not believe in reincarnation, there is no reincarnation. In other words, there is reincarnation for those who believe in reincarnation, and there is no reincarnation for those who do not believe in reincarnation.
So it's basically just a creation of man's mind.
Okay, yeah, okay, she asked the question that I was kind of curious about there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about that from anything that I read about him, that he... Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that answer, that if you believe in reincarnation, there is reincarnation, and if not... and this what he said about God previously, and about her questions. He says that she's not asking questions because, should we take it that the questions, she wouldn't have had those questions if it wasn't coming from the culture? Like, nobody would ask what is God like if the culture didn't tell people there is a God, or there might be a God.
What's weird too is that you said like there's already answers for your questions, and it's like you don't even want the answers that are given, like they don't satisfy you or something.
Okay, yeah, I didn't perhaps hear clearly what he said.
Yeah, but the last thing he said, it sounds a bit like idealism, that your mind is creating your reality or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah, like
she's asking that question, so should we continue, see if he answers?
First I wanted to add that like this is also the fiduciamic I want to believe, because maybe he has this partiality towards just I guess having a strong conviction into what your perception of reality is and what your internal mental map of reality should be, but other types are more naturally going to need feedback from others because there is more of an lack of I want to believe bias that you talk about as well.
Wow.
But yeah, it sounds like he's touching on subjectivity. Yeah. It's like regardless if reincarnation actually exists or not, if you believe that reincarnation exists, then for you it exists, and then if it doesn't, then for you it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that I want to believe bias. You create your own reality, basically. That's what he believes in, basically. That you create your reality with your mind.
Guys, please excuse me. I understand there's somebody looking for me downstairs. I'll see if I can join them.
Because you do not want all that you have done, all your life, all your achievements, all your experiences are coming to an end. So you cannot accept the fact all that you have done in your life is coming to an end. And so there must be something that will continue to live after you are gone.
What is your personal belief?
I do not believe in reincarnation at all.
So tell us...
For the simple reason that my approach to that problem, and if anybody is really interested in finding out an answer to that question, is there any such thing as reincarnation. They have to find out what is there now at this moment that will reincarnate. So you will be surprised if you go at it with all the energy, tremendous energy, that basic problem. It is not really a problem for many people. They believe in it or they don't believe in it. And you will be surprised that very recently a person came to see me. And she said, I was Isidora Duncan in my previous life. I am delighted. But unfortunately, you look like the ugliest duckling that I have seen in my entire life. She was upset, of course. I didn't say it in so many words. And you can believe in anything you want.
So basically, man can believe anything about himself that he wants.
Anything he wants to believe.
And do you think that if you believe great things about yourself, you can become great?
It takes time. You see, my answer to all those questions is very simple. You mentioned man will remain a selfish being. For centuries, we have been trying to be free from selfishness. So this is how you are going to be free from your selfishness. The answer is in selfishness, not in selflessness at all. You are not going to accept this. You are going to be a selfless person tomorrow, the day after, next year, 10 years after, and then your next life. Until then, you will remain a selfish man. So what are you going to do with the selfishness? You and I are two selfish beings. And we deal with this selfishness. And the person who says that I'm a selfless person just is trying to hoodwink you and hoodwink himself.
Oh, I find it very difficult to accept. With due respect to you, Yuji, I mean, human beings, we people do selfless things and generous things for other people at some time. You can't say that you're trying to hoodwink somebody.
That's how you feel good.
But mother does selfless things for her children.
For her own sake. All mothers are monsters, I say. Not one single exception. It may sound very funny.
I'm sitting in front of your mother here, and I'm sorry, I agree with you. I think I have done many things in my life.
And fathers don't count at all, and children are no angels.
Yeah.
Tell me, I want to really come to this point.
I think he's talking about ego now, because people might want to attach to the idea of being selfless, and in that regard, they might judge people who they perceive as selfish as a reflection of the principles that they use to judge themselves, so they are judging others with, and that's what he's trying to basically say here. And yes, people do selfless acts, but that doesn't mean that you have to attach yourself to the idea of selflessness. So he's talking about non-attachment, perhaps. That's what I got. I mean, there were some words that I didn't hear quite right.
There's a lot of noise there. I don't think I could really understand what they were talking about right there.
Yeah, I think I understood, because she was also getting a little agitated, and she seems like an urbanum type probably, so she's probably more attached to the ego idea of being seen as a good person in the eyes of others, and he's talking about how like that sort of need to get everyone on board, that you need to be selfless, you need to do things for other people, or you are not living life the right way. I guess that's kind of the fiduciamic need for freedom, and maybe some Etzidium need for independence bias getting there as well, showing there a bit, even though he's not really. But even though he's still, aware that he shouldn't be projecting his bias onto other people.
Did I hear it correctly when he also said that there is something as selflessness which is found in selfishness itself?
Yeah, it's like once you just focus on your own deeds and don't focus on telling other people what to do, and you will just have spontaneous, natural, authentic feelings towards helping other people, but it doesn't come from the place, oh, I need to be a helpful person, I need to be this, I need to be this, not the ego. It's just natural. As in, you see, oh, I know the solution to this, therefore I will help you with that. All right, and then you move on, that kind of thing.
Oh, so your selfish desire is to be selfless, and then you are selfless, because you're just, and you're not trying to be selfless. You just are.
Exactly. It's not an ego attachment. Yeah.
You can tell me when I should resume.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question. You said that you you say that you died when you were 49 years old in
What is left after the disappearance of that question is something which I will never know. There is no way I can tell myself that I'm a living person here.
But you eat, you sleep, you walk about, you come on time.
That's for you. You are the one that says that I am alive, that I am answering. There is no way I can tell myself that I am a living being, because this is something which can never become part of my experience. If you ask me the question, are you alive, I would certainly answer saying that I'm very much alive like anybody else. But the fact that I'm alive is something which cannot be experienced by me. So if I want to experience what we call a living individual's functioning, it is only through the help of the knowledge that is given to us by the physiologists and the doctors.
Do you ever have any feelings? Do you ever feel anything? Do you feel angry,
You can call
passionate about anything? Do you have feelings?
What kind of feelings you are talking about?
As I said,
really
do you ever feel angry about anything? Do you ever feel thrilled about something?
My answer is no. My answer is no. You see, a living thing never asks those questions at all. A living
Wait,
being
Andreas,
never
can you
asks
pause it?
the question, is there?
I think what he means is that since there is no self and there's no I there's no I that's a listener, then there's no he mentioned earlier too that there's no I there's no thinker, there's no one thinking. So when you ask like, do you feel anything? He says no. I think what he means is there's no I to feel anything. There's just feeling there and that's it. There's not, and when he says like I can't experience life or something like that, I thought that was really interesting. But like there's no way for me to experience this or something. I think what he means is that there's no self there to experience any kind of life or anything like that. I was wondering what you guys thought about that, because it sounds really confusing at first.
Yeah, and he was talking about knowledge, like that the only way he could know that he's alive is through like doctors and stuff like that, which is not like, I think she was looking for, like she was prying and trying to see if he had some knowledge about himself being alive that he rejected.
Yeah, but he did say that he felt alive, or did he not?
Yeah, but that he couldn't know it or something. Like,
Okay.
That the way he could know it is if he like went to a doctor.
Yeah, I guess it's talking about people endlessly questioning the meaning of their own lives, as in, and like attaching themselves to different sources of purposes because it makes them feel alive. Which, yeah, I think that's what he's kind of trying to say. And when he answers that, he means that the only objective way in which he's alive is physically, but in terms of living life as in with a meaning, that's something that cannot be really, that is something that you shouldn't ponder about too much with so much latching on, if you know what I mean. You just are, I guess, part of a bigger whole.
Any meaning or purpose of life. That is too ridiculous, too absurd to ask a question, because it's only the dead structure that is interested in. Has invented these things called the meaning of life and purpose of life, and if he wants to know, he or she, or it as the case may be, wants to know the purpose and meaning of life. Whatever purpose is there, it is already there. Whatever meaning is there is already there.
So do you believe in karma then?
You are asking me standard questions. My answer to all of them is no, 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 no.
What do you believe in? Let me ask you that.
It's very difficult because I don't have to believe in anything. Why do I have to believe? The problem for us here is that we are separating the belief from what you call you. What I am trying to emphasize is that there is no believer there, but there is only a belief there. And the belief is what is put in there by culture. So you cannot be without belief. You will naturally replace one belief with another belief. That's all that you can do. But what
Can you
exactly is
pause it
belief?
real
How is
quick?
belief separate from you? But
So Frank, when you were talking about how he said that only the doctor can confirm whether he's alive or something like that, I think this is what he means, is that like all the culture can do is provide you with information from the outside, and then you either believe it or you don't believe it, and then whatever you are that belief or something, and that's the culture and the value system and blah blah blah, and that's what you consider is you, is that belief, and that's all that exists, that's all you are, and once that belief is gone or whatever, then you're not there anymore, there's no more anything, I guess.
So does it tie that with reincarnation, you think? Because obviously what you believe does not go on after physical death.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I feel like you could possibly argue that, like, but if knowledge were to survive with you, and that's a good question. I think he asks is what is it that you think then is going to reincarnate with you, or that is actually going to reincarnate? And I think, according to timeless education, this would be the timeless core, or like the inner observer, I guess. This is like what the self is, I guess, and then this is what we think will be reincarnated. But then it's like, is it possible for? Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know.
the question which I asked, there is no believer there.
So in fact, you are not offering any answers. You're asking the questions.
I am not asking the questions. I am asking you why you are asking the questions. As a matter of fact, you do not want any answers to that questions at all. You see people who are asking all these questions, they want confirmation. So the only thing that they want to know is whether I am confirming what answers they already have. If I don't confirm, they reject. That's all that they can do. They either can accept what I am saying because it fits into the framework of the answers which they already have. They reject because it doesn't fit into the answers they have. So they either have to reject or accept. But what I tell them is that you are not in a position either to accept or reject because you are not listening to anything. You don't want any answers to your questions. If there is any answer to any question, the question should disappear. Since the questions are born out of the answers you already have, the answers go with it. So the answers and you are not different from that. When answers go, you as you know yourself and you as you experience yourself also go with it. What you are
So this sounds a lot like this sounds like confirmation bias. He's talking about that people are just trying to confirm their already existing preconceived notions in dialogue with anyone. So they just want someone to re-establish what they already thought was true or something.
Or no, you will never be able to give expression to it. So whatever has happened to me is not in the field of the experiencing structure. So there is no way I can share this with anybody. What all I tell the people who come to see me is a very simple thing. You don't need those crutches. Throw those crutches away, you can walk. That certainty I have, I can assure you and reassure you all the time, you don't need crutches at all. Please, for goodness sake, throw those crutches away, but don't ask me to replace them with another set of crutches or go in for some sophisticated kind of crutches. Even if you fall, I know that you will rise and continue to walk.
Is there any one culture or community that you have seen have come closest to the ideal that you would like to see?
It all depends upon what exactly you mean by culture and how you define culture. When I use the word culture, I say that it is your way of living and your way of thinking.
Or is there people that you think have come closest to the ideal of the way you'd like to see people live?
No, I don't want anybody to be anything different than what actually they are. I am perfectly satisfied with the world exactly the way it is because it cannot be any different. So I know very well that there is nothing that I can do as an individual. Collective action means war.
So that sounds a lot like what's advocated in timeless education, that the world is okay the way it is, and that the way things are is basically fine, and that the only thing people need to be is what they already are, basically. That's okay. That sounds pretty close to timeless education. I was wondering what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, specifically when he said that he does not want people to be anything other than they are. But the question is, are people what they are? Or are they like too contrived? Does culture mess them up so that they are not what they...
Right. And I think that's actually what he's trying to argue here, is that culture and the beliefs and all this stuff is the problem. And that this is what's messing everything up, basically. And that people are fine the way that they are, and they don't need to be something else that their culture is telling them to be through these beliefs and their ways of life that they're told to live by and stuff. That this is what's messing everything up.
Yeah, I will also say that I think that what he's saying in terms of belief, I think that a better word will be like mob mentality, or sort of this need for everyone to think alike. I think that what he's also kind of saying that that that's not who you are. I think the culture will pressure you to think a certain way, and I think you should be more individualistic, as in you have your own perspective, or another person has their own perspective, and that should be fine. There shouldn't be a pushing to be, I guess, peer pressuring others into aligning into a certain form of belief, and that is the problem. That sort of mob mentality or cultural hypnosis that is exacerbated by this need for everyone to agree with you, or your preconceived notion of what truth and reality is. Yeah.
Yeah, it also seems like he himself can live in a culture that is like that and be fine with it, because the problem just lies in not like how things really are, but in the programming itself that you can escape. But in order to be able to do that, you need to stop asking like these questions about like what is God, and the questions he like that just makes you answer what you already thought or something.
Because I guess then there'd be nothing to believe, because you'd have no answers. So then how could you believe anything if you have no answer for it?
Yeah, that's true. That's also the confusion that I have so far. I think I have an idea of what the resolution will be, but I don't know how to put it in words yet. It's something along the lines of you should question, but you shouldn't get too attached to wanting to see reality one way, as in removing your biases, which also ties into before how you guys were saying how he's basically saying that you are seeking, you don't like the answers that you're getting, so you keep begging the question, kind of, you know what I mean? As in, you already know, but you just don't like the answer. So, yeah.
My way and your way. And your way is all that you are interested in, or my way is all that I'm interested in. There is no such thing as our way at all. And when people come with their personal problems, I tell them there is no such thing as our way in the relationship between the husband and wife, in the girlfriend and the boyfriend. There is no such thing as our way, either your way or his way. But you have to have certain compromises and make it a go of your living for whatever reason you are trying to live. Do you believe try to create our way? Sorry,
I was going to ask you, do you believe in marriage? Do you believe in relationships?
Marriage is an outdated institution, but it is not so easy to do away with the institution of marriage. It is not the marriage that is really the problem in relationships between man and a woman. the possessiveness. That's the most important thing. You can possess property, you can possess ideas, you can possess tremendous amount of knowledge. You cannot possess a living being at all. And so I always tell people, you are a very beautiful woman. And somebody makes a pass at you, sorry to be personal like this. And if your husband does not kill that fellow, something wrong with him, he's a sick man. That's a very natural thing. Don't teach them to practice non-jealousy at all. So that is a very natural thing. So the possessiveness is the most important thing. I possess my wife. That is why if somebody makes a pass at, if a beautiful woman, if she is very attractive, what's wrong with her? So that's getting attracted to that, making passes with it. It is for her to make anything out of that, deal with the problem.
But I mean, there's a practical reason for this concept, because otherwise,
it is just like any other property. You have a house, and then you have a wife, you have a husband. That's all that you are interested in. But you are not going to do away with the institution of marriage at all. Somewhere along the line, so the question pops up: are you going to marry me? I have known a lot of unwed couples in my life. They come to see me. Unwed couples are more miserable than married couples. Not only that, there are so many things are involved. The marriage institution is disgusting only in one sense, because it is like any other possessive element in our lives. It's a contract, you see. So it has lost all its charm there. It is not such an easy thing to create relationships on any other basis. The possessiveness is the most important factor in keeping these institutions going.
Have you ever been married, Eugene?
Yeah, I was married and had 4 children. But my wife died almost 33 years ago.
Do you think, was it a fulfilling marriage?
No, we had this basic problem. I always told her, long before this Tina Turner's song, What Love Has Got to Do, became so popular, what love has got to do with our relationship. She didn't like that at all. The love does not play any role in relationships at all. When we find that it is not a satisfactory relationship, we want to reassure ourselves and reassure everybody that I love you, darling. What the hell do you have to say? Reassure yourself and reassure others, because the relationships are falling apart. It is not the contract of marriage that is the most important thing. The difficulty of living together is the basic problem. The real problem is that you should live like this. You see, it must be an ideal, perfect, happy marriage.
Do you believe in love?
Love? You're asking me a very delicate question. My answer is love is nothing but a 4-lettered word.
Have you ever been in love? Have you ever felt anything more than just the
What did he answer? Did anyone catch that?
Love is a 4-letter word. That's all.
Yeah, it's all what it is. It's just, yeah, yeah. So that's
his answer.
I was with my wife for the first 6 months of my marriage, and then I realized that it was just to see a drag.
You've never felt more than that for any human being?
No, the moment you introduce the element of love, you are creating a division there. And all your life, you are trying to create a loving relationship, and a constant amount of energy is put into that, and it is just, you see, an idea that we have.
No, I disagree with you. I mean, I have experienced emotions of good feeling towards another human being where I wasn't imposing my own selfish desires. I mean, love is a state of mind where you want to do something for the other person.
Why do you have to call it love?
It's a name. I mean, we have to use. No, we have to use a vocabulary, a language.
It's not just the name. It's not just the word. You see, the image that is there around that word, that is questionable to me.
Do you think that it's possible to love one human being throughout your life?
If you stop loving yourself, then it is possible to love others.
If you stop loving yourself, it's possible to love others. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
He said if you stop loving yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very weird.
I think what he means is, I've heard him before. I mean, I could mention it later, I guess.
You could mention it now. I don't know.
I watched another video where he was discussing love too, and he talked about how love, the only people that want love are people that are lonely and that they feel dependent on something. So to feel satisfaction, basically. So I guess then he was talking about how that person then feels bad about themselves. They don't like themselves. So they want love. They want someone else to fill that like feeling and make them feel good and stuff like that. So I think this is what he means then when he says that you can only what's it called? Only when you stop loving yourself can you love other people, because then you'll want other people. Like you'll start loving other people so then they can start making you feel better about yourself or something. But that's just based on something else I heard, which I think would make sense with what he's saying now. But
yeah, but he has this similar assumption that a lot of people have, that people are self-obsessed and focused on themselves because they love themselves more than they love others. Well, actually, I strongly think that people do not love themselves. They are obsessed with themselves and their situation because they don't love themselves. If they love themselves, then they don't need to focus so much on themselves. They've got that covered, and then it is also easier to love others.
Well, yeah, when I think of the whole idea of improving yourself and changing yourself and trying to be something else, that's all associated with some kind of dissatisfaction with yourself and wanting to be something else.
I agree
and
with
then the ego
it.
fixation. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And
No,
then
go
the
ahead.
ego fixation. Yeah, sorry. And then the ego fixations are kind of, I guess, what gets in the way of truly loving yourself or the way you are at this moment. And then that when you have that covered, then you can, then there is not this obsession, for, I guess, the world to align into a certain way, because you don't like, so that you can feel better about yourself, because you don't really feel better with the way it currently is, which means that you don't love yourself. So in that sense, I guess I disagree with that phrasing that he put as well. That because it's not true love, because it comes from the ego, as in you don't love yourself, and so you're looking for other people to fill that void. That's not real love, I think.
Yeah, it's like obsession. That like parents who are very obsessed with their kids, that they should perform in a certain way or something. It reminds me of that, but to yourself, and that's not love. That's actually the opposite of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, society is somewhat built on that idea as well, that people need to be motivated, and to be motivated, they cannot be satisfied with themselves. They need to strive. So there is that conflict as well. But I will resume the video.
Also, not in the sense in which you are using the word. I would never say I love anybody. So love and hate go together. See, you use love as the last card in the pack when things go wrong. And when that fails, what you are left with is hate. You may not use that word hate, but indifference to the relationship creeps into the picture. And it is not the same. So you have to reassure yourself.
So you think that's perfectly natural?
Perfectly natural.
For love and hate to be so.
You see, the problem there is we are not looking at the real issue there. The living together is not an easy thing at all. The moment you introduce the element of how to live, you see, a perfect harmonious relationship, you have created a problem there. Then only it will be possible for you to look at this and deal with this. Why there is this disharmony? Why should we bother about creating a loving, harmonious relationship?
But then how does society function? I mean, everybody lives independent.
You are living an isolated life of your own. You are not in harmony with the society at all. You are using the society only for some purposes for which it is not intended. So then only, if you are not caught up, you see, I want to use that word, between right and wrong, good and bad. You cannot do anything wrong, you cannot do anything bad. As long as you are caught up in these two, you will always do something wrong because you are only interested in doing the right thing and good thing all your life. And the fight that is going on between the two is exhausting you. You are losing tremendous amount of energy, and that is all that we are.
So then what is the answer? What should you be doing? You should be doing what you want to do above everything else.
What you have,
or what you feel instinctively feel that
you don't have anything calling your own. You don't have anything. What we are asked to do, we are doing. What we are made to believe, we are doing. So you are not doing anything what you want to do. You will be surprised when you are freed from what you should do, what you must not do, what you ought to do, and all that is thrown out of your system. You will do things in a very natural way.
It's been really interesting talking to you, Eugene. So let me just ask you a final question.
Yes.
Can you give us in a nutshell what you think ought to be the philosophy of living?
I never asked that question. I don't have any answer for that question. Live the life to live its own life. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me face to face. And I don't know how your viewers will like this.
I'm sure they'll find it very interesting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I wonder what his view is on free will, because I feel like with all this stuff, he may agree that there may not be a thing as free will, or you may have to, because the culture and what you believe is really what's dictating all your actions. So then it's like, do you then really have free will, or do you have to free yourself from all this cultural stuff first before you can begin to act naturally, I guess, or before nature can do its thing?
Yeah, but yeah, should we go through like the timeless parameters and see where he ends up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Based on what we have heard so far. So the first one is interconnection. And I mean, this is tied to what you were talking about, that we don't really have free will and things like that. And it does sound a little bit like that, like he's not completely unaware of it.
Yeah, I don't know if he mentioned too, because he didn't talk that much about free will. It was mainly about how just culture and its beliefs, and that you're the belief basic, or that's basically you as the belief, and that's what. I don't know if he mentioned. I mean, I guess you could say that could prove how things are connected and how you really don't take any independent action because it's really the culture that's acting. But he doesn't really mention how I guess all things are connected and how all things are affecting each other, even if there's no culture present, I guess. But
yeah, from what we saw, I wouldn't presume that he holds the idea that everything is connected. But he says. Can't remember exactly what it was, but some things that he say, or like he talks in a way that makes it sound like things are connected. But to say that everything is connected from just watching this video, I think we have too little information to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what he did say was that there is no like interlocutors and there is no listener and talker. That there is just information and. And believing or not believing, which you could say it's also somewhat of believing interconnection, but I don't think we don't really know besides like the communication aspect if he believes in everything being interconnected.
yeah, this is where I'm thinking it may be necessary before to even evaluate. You might need more information or something. Because he mentioned something about how in a different discussion where once the belief disappears or once you disappear, you become one with nature or something, and then there's no separateness between you and nature, but nature is just one unitary. So like it's just one thing basically. It's one organized whole, in that you're a part in this thing. So like in the other video that I would have said, yeah, it seems like he understands like the interconnectivity of everything and how you're a part of the entire thing. But then like when you watch this video, it seems like it kind of wouldn't be clear. So you would probably need a little bit more stuff maybe.
Yeah, but at least he does not necessarily contradict it although he might. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, like like against it or something.
But he
like
is
it'd be like unknown or something.
Yeah, but he's like against having a teaching and things like that. So it's almost inevitable that he's not going to be able to convey all
Tell
of
you,
stuff.
tell you what he believes. Yeah.
And the second one is contrast, and we did bring this up, valuing pain as much as happiness. I mean, he didn't necessarily say that, but he did say that he did see the foolishness in trying to attach to one particular state, such as happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like this seeking a permanent state or something, and he actually claims that that's the fundamental. I don't know if he said fundamental. I don't think he said fundamental. He just said it's one of our major tragedies or problems. I think is that we're trying to create some type of permanent state, which you could call paradise, or I guess you could call it a utopia, or like a permanent society that will be great or something, and that this is causing the problems. Because then when you're trying to create this sort of society, then you're trying to mold everybody into that thing. You're trying to get everyone to get on board and believe that thing, so then you get this peaceful utopia or peaceful state that you wish you could have, or that you wish society could be like. I feel like that goes against then the acceptance of reality and accepting reality the way it is and trying to understand it rather than trying to change it and make it the way you want it to be through creating this perfect paradise or something in the future.
Yeah, and also the thing he said in the end about love and hate, that they're always like interplaying, seems like he would support that.
Yeah. But he's what he says, or since he doesn't have a teaching, then his teaching is kind of thin. So
yeah, there's not much to go off of except what he says, I guess.
Yeah.
But you could say he does believe certain things, like when he says love is a 4-letter word and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that's what he believes, or like I don't think he even mentioned in the video that you can't escape belief, and that itself is a belief, that you can't even escape belief. So I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some things he believes and that he bases his life upon or something.
Yeah, well, I don't think he necessarily like denies the existence of beliefs. It's just that there is no one to believe in them. Something.
Yeah, he said there's no believer, there's just the beliefs, and that's it.
Yeah, but
but then he talks about there being a perceiver and something perceived, so, and that there's always two there. So I don't know, that might be
yeah, that's a very absolutistic statement in a way.
Which statement?
That there is no self or no listener or that sort of thing. I mean, it's kind of, it's on the same level as saying you are God, except you're saying something else, but it's very like reductive. And yeah, sort of.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, because clearly there is something there. Like he's only saying, oh, well, there is nothing there at all. So even if what's there is, it's like he's only focusing on one side of the, like he's, reductive, I think was a good word. Like even if the thing there is not what we think it is, still there.
You call it one-sided, I guess.
Yeah, one-sided.
Yeah, so the third one is, and I'm skipping a lot of things here that are like included, since there's not much to go on, but cycles and ceaseless change. He didn't really talk about that, like this idea of there not being any goal. He says that there is no enlightenment, but he didn't really connect it to this idea that there is no like final state.
Yeah, he's even said in other discussions I've heard him talking that seeking permanence is the greatest cause of human misery, but then like he doesn't explain how everything's changing and that that's why like seeking permanence or something like that is useless or causes a bunch of misery. And then he also talked about how there's no need to seek for a meaning or a purpose in life. That's meaningless to even talk about a purpose or meaning to life, or to even try to seek one or look for one, because you already are life. So what's the point?
Yeah, but if we were to pose that question to him, like, is the reason why if this is the reason why there is that this is the biggest tragedy, that people are trying to find a final stage, and we say, is that because everything is changing? Then he might say yes, or he might say that is just a belief. Now,
Right.
if he says that is just a belief, that's, I guess, fine in a way, but it's, yeah, I'm thinking that one can have like a similar attitude without it having to have an explanation. So I would say that he would still gain like a point on that, but he would lose a point when it comes to a later one, which is like the wisdom compass with transmission competence. I think that you can strengthen the way you convey things by being a bit more detailed and bringing up things like ceaseless change.
Yeah, that's a
you
bit
could
what
say-
Mublelo said in the beginning as well, when he criticized his use
Like
of
he's not being
language.
he's like not being very clear, like kind of vague.
Yeah.
And I think this
Yeah.
is a part of fiducium's energy a little bit, like being
Yeah.
sort of this kind of speaking and stuff, but then not really explaining the details well, I guess, or kind of being vague with knowledge and sharing it, but not having too much depth with it, maybe, even though he spent so much time with this whole spiritual seeking and stuff. I don't really know. It could just be the nature of whatever it is he's trying to explain can't really be explained that well too, so it may not have to do with energy either.
Yeah, I don't think he also really like has this concernment, or I don't think he's really trying to be to have other people, as many people as possible, understand what he's saying. I think that he is just kind of his relative way of talking tells me that he's just, I don't know, I think that he's too caught up on the idea that you shouldn't try to change reality, so maybe he's not really trying to put like as much strain on himself to like explain the little details of his ideas, and that's why the vagueness comes around, because in that in of itself ties into what he believes in, that which is that you shouldn't try to change reality, as in you just need to be on this, I guess, high cloud or
He talks about how he doesn't want to create a culture or something. He doesn't want people to turn what he says into a culture or into a belief system or something. So that may be why he's like not saying that much, I guess. It's like it's
so
being
it doesn't
kind of
turn into a dogma. Yeah, he's avoiding dogmatic kind of sort of this is the way it is, and you know.
Yeah, but he's doing it in a dogmatic way.
Yeah.
Wait, can you explain that a little more? How is
because
he?
if he's like, well, everything that I say will become a dogma if I try to systematize it. That's
even
kind of dogmatic in itself.
Yeah.
Even like what Andreas mentioned earlier, how he says that there is no believer, there is no self or anything like that. That is sort of an absolutist belief, like.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, or an absolutist statement at least.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is analogy, relationship, energy exchange. He did talk about culture, questioning cultural assumptions.
I feel like he fit that one. I feel like he got that point. Like I feel like he understands how culture is connected with everyone, and how you're just like the beliefs that you're told. Like you're basically like a reflection of those beliefs or like that culture or something. You're basically like a part of it. So
yeah, but he didn't really seem to show an interest in improving society.
Yeah, I agree. He's not trying to change it. He's just aware, but he thinks it is what it is kind of mentality, I guess.
Can you explain real short what the analogy? I think I've forgotten what's like. How do you define the analogy?
Well, analogy means that like things like culture is analogous to human nature in some sense, that culture arose because of certain tendencies in human nature, and then that the way we behave in turn then gets inspired by nature or influenced by nature. So it's like
the relationship between their connection, basically.
yeah, but also, I mean, there are many things within analogy. There is this idea that yeah, that you can this systems of 9 that you can put on things, that you can find. Yeah, the things that are within the psyche are similar to that which is without, so that you can use symbolic language to represent things, and you can also use numbers as symbolism for things. So analogy is like it connects to this idea of symbolism in many ways, and
Well,
also with
Yeah,
I think it
don't think
also connects
we talked
to
so
the.
much about that. Sorry.
I think it also, that principle, like this shows how everything's tied together, also connects to the interconnection between everything. Because I remember how you talked about the wisdom traditions all being connected, and that they're all analogous in some way to each other, but they're still very, very different, but that there's some core elements of them that are reflected in each one, like the number 3, or
yeah,
and the importance of it, or 9 qualities and stuff like that, and the focus on number 7 and 4 and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, in that case, I don't think he talked so much about that at all. At least in this video.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about analogy as a way to understand things, or the way to approach understanding, because he doesn't. I don't know what he thinks of trying to understand things in general, because it seems that the first thing he was trying to find out was what is. Well, he was trying to understand something, but he made too many assumptions that sounded a bit odd. Like, is there something as a self, and
Is there a mind? Is there a psyche and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I think he might have picked that up from his upbringing, because he was talking to all these.
Yeah, he was
Indian.
talking about how that was a result of his culture or something. That this search and all that is a result of it.
Yeah, Indian culture is very much
Spiritual.
yeah, it revolves around that a lot. I mean, they have a lot of these spiritual gurus and gods and images and things like that. It's like the haven for New Age people in a way. They always, it seems like they always talked about during the consciousness revolution, during the 60s or whenever it was, that like some people came back from India, or it's like they wanted to explore India in particular, because I guess India has, yeah, it has retained a lot of these pre-monotheistic ideas and way of life and things like that.
I think that shows how it could be attractive to a fiducium type too.
Yeah.
Like in
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
then,
but this this timeless principle of analogy is perhaps the most it's one of the less easy to explain, or but I feel that it should be there, since I think that you can get a lot out of it, because it relates to energy exchange, reciprocal maintenance, is there like one particular way of pronouncing things, or I know that you sometimes in
Reciprocal.
is that like the one way you should pronounce it? Because you also have like tomatoes and tomatoes. You can pronounce differently.
Tomato, who matters? It don't matter. Tomato, same thing.
Like in the case of, sorry.
Understand it matter. Yeah, as long as people can understand what you're saying, you're good. Yeah.
But in the case of analogy, if someone was to demonstrate lack of analogical thinking, like what would result to harm your wisdom by like not having this analogy?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I guess they would be blind to the idea. I mean, this is basically it's more like a consequence of interconnection in a way.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree as well. Thinking too that like you can see how like the relation between object A and object B is similar to the relation between object C and object D, and so therefore you can see a certain as I guess form of interaction that repeats itself in multiple different things. For example, galaxies have a spiral form. You can see the same kind of a spiral in different plants, the way in which they are arranged. You can also see it in snails and their see that kind of like interconnection principle.
Yeah, it's like a result. Like, and I think that's why you associate the number 4 with creation then, is because that is the result of the divine principles, I guess, or the ultimate reality. That's like, so analogy is the result of those.
Yeah, that you can see like the patterns of ultimate reality in things, so that you know that so there's like a correspondence, and it is also useful when interpreting religions and things like that. So
is this one of the reasons why you made analogy a principle? Because like it's inevitably a result.
I mean, principles are based on the 4 timeless principles and self-knowledge and the levels of in fundamental psychology, or the 5 aspects of the human being in fundamental psychology. So I made that as a kind of base on that. But I mean, yeah, I would say one can explore something like that analogy if one teaching. But the thing about it is that if one teaching really understands something well enough, they should understand all of it, but they might not mention it, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, this is the timeless parameters are also a way to like keep in memory the various things that holds timeless education together as a kind of robust system of wisdom, so to speak. But yeah, that one is a bit complicated, so we don't need to linger on that one. And the fifth one is emphasis on timeless principles and self-knowledge, and he doesn't do that. His emphasis is on not having anything to teach and to, is there something more he emphasizes?
I think there's a few things he emphasizes, and one of them obviously is the whole thing that there's no self, and that there's only the belief, and that you're the belief, and that it's a result of the culture and stuff like that, and that's the cause of the problems in the world. And then he also puts emphasis, I think, on there was something else. I just lost it.
I think also a lot of emphasis is like negatively put. Like he's very critical of the religions and the like spirituality as well.
But his teaching, his experience feels somewhat incomplete, because would he be able to interpret religions? I don't think he would. He's just you don't really know what he what he thinks of religions in terms of how they have evolved and whether or not there is something useful in them. But I don't think that he would be able to.
Yeah, I guess his analysis is basically that it's a belief system and it causes problems. But then I don't know, that's where I think of like maybe he hasn't asked really why, or like he doesn't explain that, I guess. He doesn't explain why or like how this happens really. That's where I think he's making a bunch of statements, but then like there's no further questioning into why he thinks this or how he came across this kind of, or why he's even making this statement, or how he came to this conclusion or something.
It seems like he wouldn't really emphasize self-knowledge because he doesn't believe there is a self to know, something like that.
Yeah, so then when it comes, and I don't know, when he talks about you just being the culture too, I wouldn't think there'd be room for something like an individual natural energies or something that belong to the individual.
Yeah, he doesn't really think in terms of levels. It's like there's the culture and then there's the no self and like there's the mind and then there's the body. There's like no gradation.
Well, yeah, he even mentioned in other discussions how there actually is no mind, that there is no thought, there's no such thing as thought, there's no such thing as mind and all this stuff. And it's like, well, then when it comes to non-attached awareness, he even discussed why is there need to detach, like but I think he has, I don't think he may not actually understand what real detachment is, because he in another video discussed the idea that people talk about detaching and stuff like that, and he mentioned a question like, why do you need to detach from anything, you know, what's wrong with attachment? And then he started mentioning, why do you have to go to a monastery and live away from people and live a celibate life? And I was like, oh well, this isn't the definition of non-attachment in timeless education, so obviously these are two different, he's talking about some other kind of non-attachment.
Well, I think it's like more like dissociation, or like rejection of life or something. Renunciation was the word I was looking for.
Or resignation, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like he also talks about how there's only a biological organism, and that's all there is. There's just this organism, which is a computer with high intelligence of its own, and we just need to let it do its thing. And that's like one of his big arguments in some other discussion I heard.
Yeah, it does seem like he has only encountered very sort of, I don't know, orthodox or stereotypical exoteric forms of spirituality, and not this the more I don't know, people who really grasp the idea of non-attachment, not necessarily having to do with living in an isolated way as a monk or something like that.
Yeah, it's more the detachment from like a fixation on something, so then you can be more open and receptive to reality and take more in, so you experience more of life. That's at least what I get from timeless education.
And that's why I don't find his criticism of spirituality very interesting, because he is criticizing the obvious in a way. So one wonders if that's a trick that he does. Like he understands that there is a true spirituality that he understands, but he wants to convey it in a way where he attacks the exoteric and the like superficial form, or if he simply don't understand it and he just thinks that he has, I don't know, he's challenging it from.
Well, he talks about how he's experienced something he can't convey to other people. And that makes me think of like the extraordinary experiences that people talk about having with enlightenment, and then they can't transmit it or pass it on or convey it to anyone. But I wonder if that's just a consequence of what he believes, that there is no self or anything. So there's nothing to really provide to you or give to you or anything. And there's no one here to say anything. Like he even talks about how he's not there to even solve anyone's problems, and he doesn't want to solve anyone's problems. And there's...
Yeah, I heard him
It-
talk about like in an interview with Jeffrey Mitchell that he sees himself as a person that has been sitting on a rodeo horse trying to grab onto the like things that maybe the mane of the horse, and then he was kicked off the horse, and then he sees that everyone else is on horses and he's on the ground off the horse, but he can't really like, because it's in their interest to keep being on the horse. They don't want to be kicked off. So like once you are kicked off, there's nothing really to say to the people that are on the horses. Like maybe they get kicked off too, but like he has nothing to do with it.
Okay, that was a kind of strange analogy, but
Yeah, when I think of point 6 though, with non-attached awareness, I don't know if he actually hits that point.
yeah,
I may argue that he doesn't, but I don't really know if he does.
and if he does it in a very kind of confusing way that isn't very clear.
Yeah.
And the seventh one, I think we already talked about this a little bit, wisdom compass, or this idea of transmission competence. Since he says he doesn't have a teaching.
Then what could he transmit?
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't believe. And it's interesting that he refers to teaching as something that will change things. But I mean, okay, I don't know if he believes it is possible to change things. It seems that he doesn't, but I mean, a teaching can be regarded as something that keeps healthy things the way in a way where things works. It's like a manual, an instruction manual or something like that, or simply to have something to do. Like if one needs to have an occupation, why not be a teacher or something like that? And also, if you don't have a teaching at all in a culture, then you have a vacuum, and a vacuum always needs to be filled by something. So someone will always teach something. You might as well.
Well, yeah, I would even say that what we're doing right now, he would call a problem, because this he would probably say is a belief system, and that this is.
Yeah, but it's not. It's actually not a belief system, because it is based on testing and consistency within certain philosophical like parameters.
Which is then why you would say it's actually objective measurements, or it's like hard metaphysics or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not belief, it's truth, basically.
Yeah, I tire very quickly of people who talk about things without having something like hard metaphysics, like these timeless principles. Because I feel that's like the origin of religion that has been lost in a way. That people, because I guess it became a kind of dogma at some point where people talked about God without resorting to these measurements, and then everything just became, a belief system.
Mm.
And sometimes I refer to as like the theory behind religions, where you have something that you can.
There are some truths in there, but then like most of it, you would say, is maybe just belief.
But it's like the hard metaphysics, like the difference between the belief system and the hard metaphysics is like if you have Christianity as it looks like today, and then you would take it away from the earth, like you would destroy all churches and all Bibles, and like everyone will forget about Christianity. Christianity would never arise as it did once before. Like, people would talk about Jesus and like the God in the sky and stuff. But if we did the same thing to timeless education, in the future it could be picked up again by someone else, and like that's why it's more it's less bound to just being a historical process. And that's how I think of it.
Yeah, ideally it should be something like mathematics, or like this idea of numbers. something that you can use to apply to things. It's like a tool more than a belief or something like that.
More like a discovery or something.
Yeah, or rediscovery. And then unconditional love. He didn't really talk about love as a manifestation of will.
Well, you know, love is just a 4-letter word. You know, it's not really.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that important to him. Or
yeah, I mean, it's like the beginning. You could say that he is onto the beginning of this realization that love is kind of futile to talk about before you improve something within human beings. He talked about stop loving yourself, and we talked about the problem with that phrasing. But yeah, it still implies that in order before we can even talk about love, something needs to change within human beings, and changing that, well, that is more the issue than simply talking about love. And in timeless education, I emphasized then that yeah, you need to develop your capacity to do something different than your inclinations or what is.
Which shows more of the impartiality, I guess, because then you're more open and receptive to different things and trying.
Yeah, you need to combine it with non-attached attachment and things like that.
Which is then supported by like interconnectivity and contrast and stuff like that, and the necessity for change and all this stuff. So then,
yeah, I mean, in some ways, it is also there is still this. Even if I talk about developing free will, which is related more to this 8th parameter more than the first one, but the first one kind of challenges that one still. If you develop your free will so that you can act different from how you usually act, then you have still come across something that you learn from, which means that it is still connected to causality. So causality is still most likely supreme. There's still no real freedom, but you still achieve. I mean, you can act with more variety, and you gain a more sense of freedom once you come across this. So it's like
a freedom for more experience or something, to experience more of life because you understand like life in its not in its totality, but life in its at its basic core or something, which then frees you to experience more of life.
Yeah, it opens up a bit more possibilities, and that can lead to different outcomes and things like that. But that's why I sometimes refer to it as like miracles.
Well, I could see why you call it creational causality as well, like, and how you associate free will with an internal attitude, because then if like everything's under cause and effect, then all you could really do is be open to whatever happens if like you have really no control at the end of the day. I mean, what could you really do? You could either, it's basically, I don't know, I think it has to deal with attention, like how much you pay attention and how much you are actually present and engaged with something. That's like,
and you're not even in control of that. Like you could, like something could muck up your ability to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the receptivity, like choosing to let go of your attachment, like maybe you fall back into being attached again for some reason.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's the point of love.
Yeah, he doesn't go far enough into this idea that you can develop that you can develop this capacity. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I don't know. I would say he is perhaps that he understands the futility of talking about love without improving yourself. But he says he doesn't believe in change and things like that. So it's like self-refuting this idea in a way. I don't know. But anyway,
there's no need for you to change or something.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, because he says that love is possible when you stop loving yourself. But that means that you should change, and that, I mean, yeah, is he okay? Does he like people not loving each other because they love themselves enough?
Yeah, I think this is why he's been criticized of being a cynic or something, like believing that humans are ultimately selfish and only concerned about their own personal gain.
Yeah, but I think he would say that, like, from what is said in the clip, I think he would be fine with everyone else being unloving, because the only thing that he needs to do to be loving is to, like, appreciate stuff like it is already. So
yeah, and that shows a bit of non-attachment in the real sense as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of the levels, I would say that he is at least on level 2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Self-expression and authenticity. I think that's what he's closest to, I think, because he doesn't.
Yeah.
He values the natural tendency in people, and sort of demonizes the culture and things like that.
Yeah, also when he says like there's no need for us to change or anything, all we need to do is be who we are. I feel like that would relate to authenticity and self-expression in some kind of way.
Yeah, and also a bit of non-avoidance, I would say.
Yeah,
it's not inconsistent with that, because he says he is okay with culture and things like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna head out because I'm starting to feel really tired since I didn't really sleep much. So
yeah, I think
finish
I saw you dozing off a couple times.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, guys, it was nice to contribute to the discussion. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
You too, Gian.
Bye bye.
Well, is there something more we should say before this is? We have already gone for almost 2 hours, and I did not want to continue to making long group meetings, at least not recorded. So I think that, and I hope that the person who requested this evaluation will be somewhat satisfied with this. I don't like to do a specific score, like how many did he get. I suppose you could do that. I mean, I have not systematized it very well, and I'm not.
I just see if I guess I don't do this kind of like scoring thing either. I just see like if any of the things, like if any of the principles are mentioned, and then if they're not, it's like, okay, then this probably isn't on the right track, or they're just missing a few things, like, and it's like, okay, well then,
I like to view it more as a kind of comparison. It's like I have this is a support for the memory of the various things that are useful and wise
right
in timeless education, and then you can compare that with what other people say, and then we can see by looking at this that what he says is kind of thin and not always expressed very well, and perhaps he does express everything if you go through all of his material. But I guess if you're a big fan of his, then you know more, and then the person who is into something should be the one to evaluate it. It shouldn't really be me. I have constructed these kind of tools so that other people can do it. But of course, I do want to do a little bit of it on my channel so that people can see the approach, and also so that people might find my material and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And I found it really useful. Like I could see definitely the purpose of it. And like when other people try to share their ideas with you, or when what's it called? When people try to teach you something or something like that, you have this sort of memorization set up. So then if it doesn't align with the principles and stuff like that, you could bring it up in the discussion. Not only that, you may be able to teach someone through it, through having like these principles set up in a way. So like I use it not to like, I guess, go out and seek other people to like evaluate, but more like when other people come to me and share their ideas and beliefs, I can use as a point to be like, okay, but this doesn't link up or match with this principle or that principle. So then why do they say this, or how come they're saying this, and where do they get that from and stuff?
Yeah, it can assist you in asking the right questions.
Yeah, that's been my experience with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we stop the recording? This was the evaluation of UG.
Wait, did we get the last principle?
Yeah, it was
non-avoidance.
non-avoidance, and there's not a lot of stuff to say there. It doesn't really talk much about engagement and reverence also for the mundane. But I mean, like he said, he was okay with culture, but even as he didn't notice, other people were. I don't know. I don't think that he could. I'm not sure how he perceives the world. Okay, he says that there is no self, but does he believe there's a world outside that we live in? I don't know. I mean,
No, I think he has actually said that he, similar to what he said about the ideal. I think I heard him say that, like, oh, if you believe there is a world, like, then there is a world, but only if you believe it.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's also one of the things that, yeah, he doesn't really touch on this idea that, okay, he is okay with the culture and he notices the problem, but how aware is he that in order, we also need some support from our environment. There needs to be, have access to like shelter and food and basic needs. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that perhaps that is so obvious that you don't need to talk about it, but sometimes, specifically within spiritual circles, that because some spiritual ideas can be a bit too divorced from the ordinary reality, like there is no world, everything is illusion, or we are a god and we are creating everything. These ideas need a principle like this to get them closer back down on the ground, so to speak. So people who are more, and I guess Yuji is a bit more grounded in that he's more critical and not so naive or not so idealistic, that he doesn't really need to say things like that. But I don't know. So those are my thoughts on non-avoidance. I think that I mean, unless he says something really weird in some other video, I think that I would give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Okay, so let's stop it here. Thank you.